I think people get surprised when they hear that a fertility doctor has infertility or fertility issues, but we're not immune. So today I'm talking about my fertility journey. I'm Dr. Amy Brown, and I am a triple board certified physician. I practice fertility medicine and incorporate lifestyle medicine to help women that are struggling with fertility and their weight and health and hormonal issues. So I often do not share my fertility journey, especially with patients. And it is not something that I hide. It's not something that I'm ever even afraid to share if someone asks me directly. I had just always felt like my job as a fertility physician is to support my patient. And for a long time, I always thought if I said, oh, I went through this as well, or I had losses as well, that it might diminish their experience. And as I have gotten less young and I have been asked by more patients and I've shared my story very openly, I do feel like sometimes it's helpful. So if you feel like it's helpful and you want to hear my fertility journey, then I am happy to share it. So I have three children. One was conceived spontaneously, and the other two were conceived through assisted reproductive technologies. And one was IVF, the other was a frozen embryo transfer. So I got pregnant in my early 30s with my oldest. Like I said, a spontaneous pregnancy, got pregnant right away, kind of uncomplicated pregnancy and delivery. He was a little complicated, but the pregnancy was not. I then delayed getting pregnant or trying to get pregnant with my second because I got a new job and I moved. And being a professional, I didn't want to come to a new position and then leave right away. I wanted to establish the practice that I'm at now and just really feel like I had contributed before I left for any kind of leave. In retrospect, and what I tell my patients now is that your fertility doesn't wait, no matter what your circumstances are. And I may have done things a little bit differently had I known what was coming in the future. But hindsight is 2020. After a couple of years of being in that practice, we started trying to get pregnant. And in that, I think it was about a year, I had 3 pregnancy losses. And a lot of times when I say that, people feel, um, very sorry. They apologize. And each pregnancy loss it's hard, it's difficult. Um, but I think the experience that I had as a fertility physician made me see things in a slightly different way. It made me plan in a slightly different way. So I was then probably 35, 36. And at that time, I really didn't know what I wanted my family to look like. I didn't know how many children I might want, but I knew the statistics. I knew at 35, 25% of my eggs were chromosomally abnormal. And if I were to get pregnant and have a successful pregnancy, the longer it took me to get pregnant, the less likely I was going to have the choice to have a third baby. And so the pregnancy losses, although very difficult, were also, for me, a little bit of a blessing because it allowed me to make a decision and say, okay, this is not happening easily. This is going to happen even in a harder way in several years. What do I want my family to look like? and how do I go about that? And so, what I described for myself was not an infertility problem. It was more of a fertility problem with recurrent miscarriages. Um, and again, most likely, knowing what I know, due to age. So I decided to do IVF, and I did IVF with a previous practice. So I traveled during my IVF cycle. I've talked to patients. I gave my trigger shot in the bathroom on an airplane, and I just remember thinking, please don't put on the fasten seatbelt sign, because I do not want to call my doctor and say I was off of my trigger shot, because I know what getting that call is like. So I just remember that I had to give some of my injections on my own. So when people ask me, "Oh, can you do it on your own?" Absolutely, I've done it. I was very, very lucky to get pregnant with my first IVF cycle, and then waited and timed my frozen embryo transfer cycle. They're about 2 years apart, um, and was able to get pregnant on my second transfer. And again, my fertility story, I believe, was very lucky. And in the end, I think a lot because my secondary infertility issues were related a lot to age, and not an underlying fertility um, issue um, beyond that. So I was very lucky in that way. So I share all that, not to, not in a way that like, oh, I did this, I had infertility in any way. It's only to share my story if it's important or if it's helpful to anyone, because I never thought that it mattered that much, and I didn't want to take away from anyone's journey. But I do believe that for some people it is helpful to know that other people are going through this. Um, Maybe even your doctor has been through this or is going through something. So we see you. Um, we know that it's difficult, and we all, I think, fertility physicians are wanting the best for you.